Let me read you a few statistics. In 2007, children's participation in outdoor activities declined by 11% in just 1 year in the United States, according to the Outdoor Foundation. In one survey, 71% of adults report that they walked or rode a bike to school when they were children, but only 22% of children do so today in the United States. In the UK, 1,150 adults and 502 children were asked were surveyed to learn about the differences between generations in terms of their experience of childhood playtime. Fewer than 10% of children said they played outdoors in natural places, as compared to 40% of adults who said they played in natural spaces such as woodlands and countryside when they were children. Children's discretionary time to do anything independently in the United States has diminished radically. Researchers at the University of Maryland found that between 1997 and 2003, there was a reported possible decline of 50% of the proportion of children 9 to 12 who spent time in such outdoor activities as hiking, walking, fishing, beach play, and gardening. The number of hours available for free play, and remember, this is the early 2000s, decreased by 9 hours a week, a 16% drop, being replaced, that independent play, by more structured activities such as schoolwork and organized sports. This is an international issue. Obviously, in some of the English-speaking countries, it's moving quicker, what I call nature deficit disorder, than in some other countries. But I can tell you that I was surprised at the reception in other countries to Last Child in the Woods. I was very complimentary, for instance, to some of the Scandinavian countries that I think do a lot of things right, and in the book. And I started getting email after it came out, and they were saying, we like your book, Rich, but you're wrong about us. We have nature deficit disorder too. And to my surprise, the government of the Netherlands paid for the translation of the book into Dutch, which I think is a very good expenditure of government money. And they said that they had this too. And they invited me over, and I heard everywhere I went in the Netherlands, people said, we don't have nature here. I said, you're kidding. I mean, this is beautiful. This is wonderful on the trains. And their perception of nature, I think, the ones that, at least that I talked to, had more to do with wilderness, kind of the images that Hollywood puts out of what nature is. It's very important, I'm getting a little off track here, but it's very important to think about nearby nature as being just as important as wilderness to human development, and that's where many of the parks come in, obviously. But internationally, one study suggests, this is a recent study, suggests low rates of children's nature experiences across many countries. This survey of more than 2,400 mothers in 16 countries asked a range of questions about children's playtime, including if their children explored nature when playing outdoors. In China, only 5% of those surveyed said their children explored nature when playing outdoors. Brazil, it was 18%, Indonesia, 7%, UK, 25%, Turkey, 10%, US, 33%. We're doing better than some of those countries, apparently. I don't see Australia on this list. France, it was 45%. They do many things better than we do. India, 18%. When asked what free time activities their children did most often, 72% said watching TV. After the book came out, there was even a newspaper article out of Nairobi, Kenya, worrying about literally nature deficit disorder in Kenya. And I thought about that, and I was astounded by that. And then the more I thought about it, I thought it makes sense. In Africa, on every continent, we are moving into cities. Over half, you've already heard this, over half of human beings now live in cities. And that percentage is going to go up in future decades. So this is a universal issue. However we may interpret the solutions differently, or the extent of that problem differently, this is a universal issue. One of the things that we need to begin to think about are the benefits of nature. We can't just think about the deficit. We really need to think about the benefits of nature to children, from parks, from schools that have access to nature, give kids access to nature, et cetera. By the way, there was a study fairly recently. Again, this is the United States, and we may be farther down the curve than some of you. But preschoolers, there was research at 24 preschools in metropolitan areas of South Carolina, and they found that the preschoolers spent 89% of their days at daycare centers doing sedentary activity. 89% of their days sedentary. And even when they went outdoors at those schools, kids still spent 56% of their time in sedentary activity. What are we thinking? At some of the school districts in the United States, Broward County, Florida School District, one of the biggest ones in the United States, a few years ago started putting up no running signs on the playgrounds. It's true. What are we thinking? We're raising really a generation under essentially protective house arrest. One researcher calls them containerized kids. From the moment they are born, they are kept in car seats and strollers, preschools that even when they go outside on that cement slab, they don't do very much. Always containerized, always under supervision, always under scrutiny by adults. Why is that important? Aren't they safer that way? Well, perhaps physically in some ways, or not. If we want to look at a real risk, we'll look at child obesity. Pediatricians in the United States saying this generation of children may be the first to die at an earlier age, lower life expectancy than their own parents in our history. That's a real risk. But why is that important that kids have both independent play and nature, which often overlap? And by the way, the First Lady in the United States, Michelle Obama, announced a great program on child obesity recently. I got a call from her speechwriter verifying a fact reported in the book. So we were very hopeful that nature would be part of that. When it was released, at least so far, it lacks two things, that plan. It lacks independent play. It's all about organized structured play, pretty much, and diet. And it lacks nature. Nature doesn't appear. And much of the discussion, much of the research about child obesity, you won't see the word nature. Why is that? One of the reasons that independent play, which often happens in natural settings, is so important is because of the development of executive function. Executive function is a psychological phrase for our children's ability to control themselves, self-control. It's the sound in your voice that goes off when your buddies say, let's go jump off the cliff, and you say, that may not be a good idea. That is developed, according to many psychologists, early in childhood, primarily through independent make-believe play. That ability to self-control, executive function, makes sense when you think about it, because if you're creating your own world through make-believe, you are the executive of that world. A study, and you can find this study online if you Google NPR and executive function, you'll find a very good report they did on this. A study that was done in the 1940s was replicated. What they found is that children, a 7-year-old today has the executive function of a 5-year-old in the 1940s. In other words, 2 years of development of executive function has been shaved away from children's lives. I hope those of you from other countries, I hope it's better there.